Welcome to Wealth Coffee Chats, folks, for your daily live updates. Get the most out of today's episode by participating in the chat. Make sure you ask some questions, be part of the conversation, have a bit of fun, grab a coffee or a tea, take some notes, and get ready to start your day, folks. Quick few housekeeping rules, though. No spamming, no advertising or self-promotion in the chat. That's not on. Be kind and respectful to everyone when participating. And most of all, have a good time. Real estate investing can be your biggest asset. It also can be your most expensive asset when it comes to getting it right or getting it wrong, folks. It can be time-consuming, stressful, and that's why here at Positive, we have what's called a 6-star team, a full-service team that provides integrated wealth and property investing solutions and services simply designed to help you progress towards your goal of passive income through your property portfolio, folks. Make sure you check out our other podcasts on the Positive Mentor Network. Not only is there Wealth Coffee Chats, there's the Urban Property Investor. Drops every Wednesday with straight talking investing strategies and lessons with Sam Saggers. Property Investor Tales. This is where our clients, you guys, share real life stories from property investing, hosted by some of our advisors and strategists. And that's done every fortnight, dropping every Monday. Wealth, Wine and Wisdom, folks, that debriefs the week that was in the world of finance and property, hosted by yours truly, Jason Witten and Andy Fenton on Fridays. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Marvellous Monday. Hope you're well, folks, wherever you are. If you think it's Get Rich Quick, you're in the wrong place. This is the wrong podcast. This is the wrong live for you. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Hope you're all awesome and well.
Now, there you go, team. We're live. Happy Wednesday. Morning to you and everyone else joining here today. I'm going to see if anyone has jumped on early. If the early birds are here today, or if we're a bit slow. I was a bit slow this morning. That's why we get our coffees. But welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Property Management Wednesdays, of course. Here to talk all things property management. Here to discuss today C-grade property combined with a C-grade property manager. What sort of outcome, do we get? What does that look like? Because I've got a cracker of a story here this morning. So, team, we'll just warm up a little bit, see who's online. If you haven't sort of seen me around the traps before, team, my name's Cass, representing the property management team out of the 6-star team, Positive Real Estate R&W, and 13 years in the game, in the industry. And, it's certainly brought us challenges, but I think what we know is that success leaves clues. And that's what we do here every Wednesday morning, share some stories, have a look at, the challenges that you as the landlord, as the investor face week to week. And as I said from the top, we've got a cracker of a story today. So if you haven't seen me, give me a shout out in the chat. Obviously, any questions, throughout Wealth Coffee Chats on Wednesdays, team, or for any day through the week for that matter, when you join the rest of the 6-star team, pop it in the chat, team, as we go along. Which is really good. So today's topic, C-grade property manager, what a combination that might look like, hey? And like I said, we've got a bit of a cracker this morning to share. So as I get this going, team, a few of the early birds are here. Sharon, morning to you. Thanks for joining, Bunty, as always. Good to see you, and Luke's on as well. So thanks for jumping on, team. Spending a bit of time with me on Property Management Wednesdays, which is super cool. So as I said, team, C-grade property. Now, if you guys have been tuning into Wealth Coffee Chats for a while with Jason, you're part of the, the Positive Real Estate team. If you living under a rock, Sam's got a cracker podcast, Urban Property Investor. So if you haven't been listening to that podcast, I would suggest get onto that, because if you have, you'll know a bit of context to what I'm sort of discussing today in and around, A-grade property, destination property, if you like, versus the C-grade type of property and what challenges that might bring. And I suppose for the purpose of this morning's conversation, C-grade property can at times bring some challenges into your life, into your property management world. And when you combine that with the C-grade property manager, you've got a recipe that I don't know. Some would maybe say it's okay. In my experience, I think you're inviting some problems into your life. So that's what we're going to unpack today. So Brad's joined us as well this morning. So thanks for jumping on, Brad. Good to see you. So, team, challenges that we discussed, I think it was last week, maybe. You guys might correct me in the chat, but I still had this sort of up from last week. We were sort of discussing the idea of this cash flow flywheel, that in instance of ticking the box in terms of where your property was located, A grade locations versus C grade locations. We spoke about some other rent gap theories and where you might sit at some point with your particular properties in your portfolio, right? There might be renovation rent gap, market rent gap, and tenant rent gap. But today, we're going to sort of highlight the renovation rent gap and then how that may affect this particular investor in this situation actually achieving market rent. So that's kind of, you guys are cool with that. That's what I'm going to talk about today, because here's how it sort of played out, right? Received a phone call from a potential client. I don't have any history with this property, so you can imagine how that first meeting went when you're trying to unpack what's going on. And what we found out quite quickly and what we identified was that, this property wasn't necessarily, I guess performing to its capacity. It certainly had the location that people desire, and I think that was working really well for them. But I suppose we had a situation where the property was in quite poor condition. There was significant amount of fixtures, fittings, some structural things where there was water leaks. Things were just breaking down, right? And sometimes that can lead to maybe the type of tenant you attract in the property, right? So we've got a situation here. We've got this renovation rent gap theory. We've got some significant problems, some challenges going on in the property. No one really wanted to take responsibility for it. And I guess the conversation is not just one identifying what's going on and what needs to be fixed, but I guess unpacking, what is this actually going to cost you as the investor, as the owner, to actually bring this property back up to a standard where the demand of today's tenant will actually pay you top dollar for, or at the very least, market rent, right? And that's what we're talking about today. And so, a lot of things were going through my head at this point in time. I was referring back to the cash flow flywheel. We're having this conversation. I'm saying, hey, listen, look, your location is great. We've got some issues in terms of how the property presents. I mentioned minimum standards, which I know you guys know all about. We've spoken about it before on Wealth Coffee Chats here on a Wednesday morning. And, to my surprise, the owner didn't actually have a clue what I was talking about, which then led to the conversation about the current property manager, right? Which is where it sort of gets interesting. Now, to give you guys some context, this property wasn't initially bought as an investment. The owner, once upon a time, lived in the property for a significant amount of years. So you can understand this home may be of sentimental value to this particular owner, right, for a variety of reasons. And, that's cool, right? We've got to work around these things. But I could understand there was some high stakes. There was some high stakes here. There was a lot of emotions around the situation and what was going on, given the condition of the property, right? So the condition of the property was just fueling, the situation. That kind of led to, the minimum standards conversation. We sort of said, well, hey, how is this property? If I remove that, hopefully the camera's still working. Team, let me know if you can't see me in the chat. But, what led us to was, the conversation about your property manager. Now, I've always jumped on here and sort of said, your property manager has two jobs. And if you guys were at the summit, we sort of had a conversation about, keeping you safe and making you wealthy. And I think that's a super critical part, excuse me, to, I guess holding property for 5, 10, 15 plus years, whatever that looks like in your investment journey. And then what we found was, on top of this property that, let's call it C-grade property that was causing some challenges, some issues in the life of this investor, we then had a C-grade property manager, right? Little to no experience. I end up working out they didn't just have one property manager. They actually had 3 over the last 12 months, right? 3 over the last 12 months, right? Quite significant, right? A lot of change, a lot of adjustment, a lot of history, a lot of notes maybe that went missing. The communication would have been poor, was my observation. And, when you couple that with little to no experience and then an overall situation where there's no plan or no strategy, then I suppose, you're going to have some issues. Thanks, Grant, for popping that in there. Sometimes the tech doesn't work on me. So good to know. Good to know. And team, and so when you've got this C-grade property and C-grade property manager, from my perspective, 13 years in the industry, I think sometimes that's going to influence a negative situation in your life. I think it's going to bring some challenges and some issues that I don't think you want. And I suppose, you guys are smart enough to know you're not going to want that in your life. And that's why we talk about a great property and a great locations. And you guys listen to Sam's Forex growth plan and all these sorts of things that your coaching team takes you through. Jeff's in Singapore. Where are you off to, Jeff? Let us know. Hopefully it's somewhere warm. It's a little bit cold here in Brisbane. So g'day to you, mate. Thanks for jumping on. Safe flight wherever you are heading, Jeff. So, in this situation, team, what are the problems, right? What are the problems other than, top line conversation of C-grade property and property manager? We've got some legal obligations here. The owner is in a situation where, there might be some risk at tribunal, or around minimum standards, right? The property's not meeting that. That can generate fines and things like that if it's not handled correctly and not, fixed quite quickly. If we want to continue to hold this property, what is that renovation going to look like? Because as we discussed that renovation rent gap, we've got a situation that does that owner, or do you as the owner have access to funds to get the job done, right? Because we've got to meet minimum standards and we've got to get the property back up to standard. Given we need to spend 10, 20, 30 grand, potentially, maybe more in some instances, what's our return on investment going to look like? What is that going to look like for you as an investor in terms of your net figure? Sorry, guys, I'm just getting distracted by where Jeff's heading off to. Thailand, he's off to Thailand, the Philippines. Oh, good on you, mate. Escaping the Aussie winter. Good on you. That stuff kind of where I want to be right now. Team, and then you've got a situation where if the property's not meeting that standard, you've got a market rent gap situation. You can no longer essentially get that rent up to market value, right? Because the demand of today's tenant is not going to want to pay for that, right? Coupled with some sentimental value and emotions on top, and there's a few other things going on, right? Is that a recipe for disaster? Potentially, right? Potentially. And the reason I share this story with you, team, is I see it time and time again with C-grade property or older property for that matter, where we perhaps haven't had a plan in place to execute a 7-year rejuvenation on the property. We haven't looked after it. We haven't maintained it, coupled with a property manager who's not maybe giving you the information that you need throughout the year, whether it's through routine inspections or whatnot. So there's a combination of a few things going on here. And now the owner's in a situation where, they're trying to find a solution, right? So what does that solution look like when you're in this situation? In this instance, I'm just sort of saying, hey, there's potentially some risk here. Let's just move the tenant on, cut your losses, get on with life, right? Minimize your risk, and move on with your life. That's probably number one, right? And sometimes that's really hard to comprehend, and sometimes that's hard to execute given the team you have around you. But the second thing you guys need to know is, right, know your numbers. I know you guys are really good at that. Like, what does the rent look like now? What is the rent going to look like if I do a renovation? And the third option I might need to sell this C-grade property. I know we say buy well, never sell. But Jason also says, sell strategically, right? And sometimes, you might need to put yourself in that position to upgrade that C-class property and potentially buy something in a better location. Maybe it's, more newer, meets the demand of today's tenant. And there's a whole host of things that is of benefit to you as an investor in that space, right? But, and the last thing, obviously, C-grade property managers. Well, I think you guys know what to do if you identify you do have one of those property managers in your life. I'm a big believer, your property manager, they are your eyes and ears on the ground team. A lot of us have property interstate where we're not able to, drive around the corner and see what's going on a lot of the time. So, your property manager is someone you've got to be comfortable and confident with as well on your team. So, there's a couple of things you can do there. Obviously, if you get in this situation, team, please, I would implore you to just try and cut your losses and move on. It's probably not worth the time, the stress, the money that is going to cost you. If you sort of try to hold on and continue to go. Now, obviously, you guys got a coaching team. You can reach out to them and obviously have these sorts of conversations with, and also I can always help with in terms of the rents. But I just wanted to share that story that's popped up in my life in the past week because it's been really another interesting experience to understand some perspectives and also just understand, some process and some strategies that may or may not have been there and potentially what that solution might look like. I do believe there's a solution to everything, no matter how the situation might feel at that particular time. But that's always there for you, team. So if there's any questions, team, on that, please pop it in the chat. But like I said, know your numbers. It's all about, it's just a bit of a reminder today that, the reality of, what gets discussed in some of these podcasts when things don't go right. This is the reality that I see on the flip side when we go through this holding phase of this thing we call property investing. And, just another reminder, team, to have a look on who's on your team. Do you trust them? Do they care? Some of those questions there that you can ask yourself. So if there's any questions, team, pop it in the chat for me. If not, that's all good. Hopefully today has been helpful. Jeff, you go and enjoy your little trip away from the winter here in Australia. Although it's not that cold in some places, So Brad's online today. I think he's up north, so I'm sure he's nice and warm. But that's it from me, team, today. Don't forget tomorrow. No, Jason will not be here. Andy will be back tomorrow for another Wealth Coffee Chat. Jeff says come over for a beer. Oh, maybe one day, mate. I've got some work to do this morning. But thank you for the invite as always. But team, that's it for me today. Don't forget, 8:10 tomorrow, another Wealth Coffee Chat with Andy Fenton. He'll be joining you guys and sharing some more insightful stuff. And don't forget Finance Friday. So that's it for me, team. Over and out. Happy Wednesday. Enjoy your day, team.
Episode of Wealth Coffee Chat, folks. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you never miss a thing when we go live. Improve your portfolio and investing game, folks, with Wealth Coffee Chats live every morning at 8:10 each weekday. Make sure you join us. Previous episodes are also available wherever you get your podcasts, folks, as well as our other podcasts from the 6-Star team here at positivementor.com.au.